The morning started like any other in the small town of Ashford, Connecticut. Sarah Martinez wiped down the marble countertops of the Henderson mansion for what felt like the 1000th time that month. Her hands were raw, her back ached, and the smell of bleach had become so familiar it no longer bothered her. She had been cleaning houses for 15 years, ever since her husband died in a construction accident, leaving her alone with a 6-year-old daughter and a mountain of medical bills. That daughter, Emma, was now 21. While other kids her age were finishing college and landing corporate jobs, Emma was working double shifts at a diner on Route 7, saving every penny she could. Sarah had dreams for her daughter, big dreams, but life had other plans. Emma was smart, brilliant even, but college tuition was a luxury they couldn't afford. Still, the girl never complained. She smiled through the exhaustion, kissed her mother's forehead every morning, and promised that one day things would be different. It was a cold November evening when everything changed. Emma's shift at the diner had just ended. She walked toward the bus stop, her sneakers scuffing against the wet pavement. The streetlights flickered, casting long shadows across the empty road. Most people avoided this part of town after dark. It wasn't dangerous, not really, but it was isolated. The kind of place where help wouldn't come quickly if you needed it. Emma pulled her thin jacket tighter around her body and checked her phone. The last bus had already left. She cursed under her breath. It would be a long walk home, nearly 3 miles through poorly lit streets. She started walking, her breath forming small clouds in the freezing air. 20 minutes later, she heard it. A low, guttural groan coming from the alley between 2 abandoned storefronts. Emma froze. Every instinct told her to keep walking, to ignore it, to get home safely. But something in that sound, something desperately human, made her stop. She turned toward the alley, her heart pounding. The groan came again, weaker this time. Emma pulled out her phone and turned on the flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness, revealing a sight that made her blood run cold. A man lay crumpled against the brick wall, his police uniform soaked in blood. His badge caught the light, glinting weakly. His eyes were half closed, his breathing shallow and labored. A pool of dark red spread beneath him, staining the concrete. Emma's hands shook as she rushed toward him. She dropped to her knees, her jeans soaking up the cold, bloody water. The officer's eyes flickered open, unfocused and filled with pain. "Stay with me," Emma said, her voice trembling. She pressed her hands against the wound in his abdomen, trying to stop the bleeding. The officer gasped, his body convulsing. "Shot," he whispered, barely audible. "Robbery. They took everything." Emma fumbled for her phone with one bloody hand, keeping pressure on the wound with the other. She dialed 911, her fingers slipping on the screen. "I need an ambulance," she said, her voice cracking. "Officer down, gunshot wound, corner of Bradley and 5th. Please hurry." The dispatcher's calm voice gave her instructions, but Emma barely heard them. The officer's eyes were closing again. His skin was pale, almost gray. She could feel his life slipping away beneath her hands. "Don't you dare die on me," Emma said fiercely, tears streaming down her face. "Do you hear me? Stay awake. What's your name? Tell me your name." The officer's lips moved. "Michael," he breathed. "Michael Reeves." "Okay, Michael. I'm Emma. You're going to be fine. Help is coming. Just keep your eyes open. Look at me. Keep looking at me." She talked to him, nonsense mostly, anything to keep him conscious. She told him about her mother, about the diner, about the dream of going to college someday. She pressed harder on the wound, ignoring the way the blood seeped through her fingers, warm and sticky. In the distance, sirens wailed. Red and blue lights painted the alley walls. Paramedics rushed in with a stretcher and equipment, pushing Emma gently aside. She stumbled backward, her hands covered in blood, her whole body shaking. One of the paramedics looked at her. "You saved his life," he said quietly. Another 5 minutes and he would have been gone. Emma watched as they loaded Michael Reeves into the ambulance. His eyes found hers one last time before the doors closed. There was something in that look, something that went beyond gratitude. Connection. A moment that would change everything. The ambulance screamed away into the night, leaving Emma alone in the alley, covered in a stranger's blood, with no idea that this single act of courage would shake the foundations of the entire Ashford Police Department. The next morning, Emma stood in front of the bathroom mirror, scrubbing the dried blood from under her fingernails. No matter how hard she washed, faint traces remained, dark lines etched into her skin like a reminder of the night before. She hadn't slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Michael Reeves lying in that alley, dying. Her mother knocked softly on the door. "Mija, you need to eat something before work." Emma opened the door. Sarah's eyes widened when she saw her daughter's exhausted face, the dark circles, the trembling hands. "What happened to you?" Emma told her everything. Sarah listened in silence, her hand covering her mouth. When Emma finished, her mother pulled her into a tight embrace. "You could have been killed," Sarah whispered. "Those men could have come back. But they didn't, Mom. And that officer is alive because I stopped." Sarah pulled back, tears in her eyes. "I know. I'm so proud of you, but also terrified." Emma arrived at the diner an hour later, still wearing the same clothes from the night before. She hadn't had time to change. Her manager, Tom, a heavy-set man with permanent sweat stains under his arms, looked her up and down with disgust. "You're late," he barked. "I'm 5 minutes late. There was an emergency." "I don't pay you for emergencies. I pay you to be here on time. This is your second warning this month, Martinez. One more and you're done." Emma bit her tongue. She needed this job. She couldn't afford to lose it, not with rent due next week and her mother's medication running low. She tied her apron and started taking orders, forcing a smile she didn't feel. The morning rush was brutal. The diner was packed with construction workers and truckers, all demanding coffee refills and shouting orders. Emma's feet ached, her head pounded, and the smell of grease made her stomach turn. Then the bell above the door chimed. 3 police officers walked in, their uniforms crisp and intimidating. Emma's heart jumped. She recognized one of them from the news, Captain Richard Dalton, a stern-faced man with gray hair and cold blue eyes. They took a booth in the corner. Emma approached with her notepad, trying to keep her hands steady. "What can I get you?" Captain Dalton didn't look up from his menu. "Coffee, black, and the special," the other 2 officers ordered. As Emma turned to leave, Dalton's voice stopped her cold. "You're Emma Martinez." She turned slowly. "Yes, sir." His eyes narrowed. "You're the girl who found Officer Reeves last night." "I am." The diner had gone quiet. Everyone was watching. Dalton leaned back in his seat, his expression unreadable. That was a dangerous part of town for a young woman to be walking alone at night. Makes a person wonder what you were really doing there. Emma's blood ran cold. "I was walking home from work. I missed my bus." "Convenient," Dalton said, his voice dripping with suspicion. "You just happened to be in the right place at the right time. Or maybe the wrong place." Officer Reeves was carrying his service weapon and $200 in cash. "Both are missing." The implication hit Emma like a physical blow. Her mouth went dry. "You think I robbed him?" "I think it's interesting that a girl with no medical training somehow kept a dying man alive long enough for paramedics to arrive. I think it's interesting that you were the only witness. And I think it's very interesting that you're the daughter of a maid who cleans houses all over this town. Easy access to information about who has money and who doesn't." Emma's hands clenched into fists. "I saved his life. Or you're covering your tracks," Dalton said coldly. "We'll be in touch, Miss Martinez. Don't leave town." Emma's world crumbled in the days that followed. Word spread fast in a small town like Ashford. By the end of the week, everyone knew that Captain Dalton suspected her of robbing Officer Reeves. The whispers started at the diner, then spread to the grocery store, the gas station, everywhere she went. "Look, that's the girl who stole from the cop. I heard she left him to die and only called 911 when she heard sirens. Her mother's a maid. They probably planned it together. Tom fired her on Friday. Said customers were complaining. Said her presence was bad for business. Emma didn't fight it. What was the point? She walked out of that diner with 2 weeks of unpaid wages and nowhere to go. Sarah lost 3 cleaning jobs in 2 days. The families didn't say why, but Emma knew. Guilt by association. Her mother cried herself to sleep that night, apologizing over and over for not being able to protect her daughter from this nightmare. Emma sat on their apartment steps, staring at the eviction notice taped to their door. 30 days. They had 30 days to come up with $1,200 or they'd be on the street. Her phone buzzed. An unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Hello? Emma Martinez? A woman's voice, professional and kind. Yes. My name is Detective Lisa Chin. I'm with the Connecticut State Police Internal Affairs Division. I need to speak with you about the night you found Officer Reeves. Can we meet? Emma's heart raced. More accusations. More humiliation. I already told the Ashford police everything. I'm not with the Ashford police, Detective Chun said carefully. And I'm not calling to accuse you of anything. I'm calling because something doesn't add up about that night, and I think you might be the only person telling the truth. They met at a coffee shop 2 towns over, away from prying eyes. Detective Chun was in her 40s, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She slid a folder across the table. I've been investigating Captain Dalton for 8 months. Chun said quietly. Corruption, evidence tampering, witness intimidation. Officer Michael Reeves was helping me. He was gathering proof. The night you found him, he was meeting a confidential informant who was going to provide documents about Dalton's involvement in a drug seizure cover-up. Emma's blood ran cold. You think Dalton had him shot? I know he did. And now he's trying to discredit you because you're the only witness who can confirm that Reeves was on duty, in uniform, doing legitimate police work that night. If Dalton can paint you as a criminal, your testimony becomes worthless. Emma felt sick. What do I do? Detective Chun leaned forward. You fight back. Michael Reeves woke up yesterday. He's weak, but he's talking. And the first thing he said was your name. He wants to see you. If you're watching this and you're rooting for Emma, if you believe that sometimes doing the right thing means standing up even when the whole world is against you, hit that subscribe button right now. Because what happens next is going to change everything, and you won't want to miss a single moment of this story. Emma's hands trembled as she gripped her coffee cup. When can I see him? Tomorrow. Hartford General Hospital. Room 304. But Emma. Chen's voice dropped to a warning. Dalton has officers watching that hospital. If you go, you're putting yourself at risk. Emma thought of her mother crying in their tiny apartment. She thought of the eviction notice. She thought of Michael Reeves bleeding out in that alley, whispering his name with his last breath. I'll be there, Emma said firmly. Emma walked through the corridors of Hartford General Hospital with her hood pulled low over her face. Detective Chun had given her a visitor's badge under a false name. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she passed 2 Ashford police officers stationed near the elevator. They didn't look up from their phones. Room 304 was at the end of a quiet hallway. Emma knocked softly before pushing the door open. Michael Reeves looked different in the hospital bed. Smaller somehow, vulnerable. Tubes ran from his arms. Monitors beeped steadily beside him. But his eyes were alert, and when he saw Emma, something like relief washed over his face. You came, he said, his voice rough. Emma approached slowly. How are you feeling? Like I got shot, he said with a weak smile. But alive. Thanks to you. She sat in the chair beside his bed. I'm sorry. About everything. Captain Dalton thinks I robbed you. He's destroyed my life, my mother's life. Michael's jaw tightened. Dalton is a snake. Always has been. He knows I was getting close to exposing him. That's why he had me killed. The informant? Dead. They found his body in the river 3 days ago. Ruled it a suicide. Michael's hands clenched into fists. But I have something Dalton doesn't know about. Before I met the informant that night, I uploaded copies of all the evidence to a secure cloud server. Bank statements, photographs, recorded conversations. Everything. Emma leaned forward. Then why haven't you turned it over? Because I need someone Dalton can't touch. Someone outside the Ashford Police Department. Someone brave enough to walk into internal affairs and hand them everything. Michael's eyes locked onto hers. I need you, Emma. Me? I'm nobody. I'm just a waitress. You're the person who saved my life when you could have walked away. You're the person who stood up to pressure and told the truth. That makes you exactly the kind of person we need. Emma's mind raced. If I do this, Dalton will come after me harder. He's already coming after you. Michael reached for a small USB drive on his bedside table and pressed it into her palm. This is everything. Detective Chun knows what to do with it. But Emma, once you walk out of here with this, there's no going back. You'll be a witness in a major corruption case. Your life will change completely. Emma looked at the USB drive in her hand. It was so small, so ordinary looking, but it held the power to bring down a corrupt captain and clear her name. More than that, it held justice for Michael, for the dead informant, for everyone Dalton had hurt. She closed her fingers around it. I'll do it. Michael exhaled slowly, and for the first time since she'd entered the room, he smiled. Really smiled. Thank you. There's one more thing, Michael added. The force has a witness protection program for civilians involved in major cases. If this goes to trial, you and your mother will be relocated, given new identities, financial support. You'd be safe. Emma stood, tucking the USB drive deep into her pocket. Let's make sure it goes to trial then. She turned toward the door, but Michael's voice stopped her. Emma, after this is over, after the trial, after everything settles down, would you maybe want to get coffee? Real coffee, not hospital coffee. Despite everything, Emma found herself smiling. I'd like that, Officer Reeves. Call me Michael. Emma walked out of Hartford General with the USB drive burning a hole in her pocket. Detective Chun was waiting in the parking garage, leaning against an unmarked sedan. You got it? Emma handed over the drive. Chen's eyes gleamed with satisfaction as she turned it over in her hands. This is it. This is what we've been waiting for. Chun looked at Emma with genuine respect. You're incredibly brave, you know that? I'm terrified. That's what makes it brave. The next 72 hours moved like a whirlwind. Detective Chun and her team worked around the clock, analyzing the evidence Michael had gathered. Bank records showing Dalton had deposited over $300,000 in offshore accounts. Photographs of him meeting with known drug dealers. Audio recordings of him ordering officers to lose evidence, to falsify reports, to intimidate witnesses. On the fourth day, Connecticut State Police descended on the Ashford Police Department like a storm. Captain Richard Dalton was arrested at his desk, handcuffed in front of the entire precinct. The charges were extensive: corruption, conspiracy to commit murder, obstruction of justice, racketeering. The local news stations ran the story for weeks. Video footage of Dalton's perp walk played on repeat. Emma's name was cleared publicly, with the district attorney himself holding a press conference to commend her courage and integrity. The two officers who had been with Dalton at the diner, the ones who had watched silently as he accused Emma, came forward with their own testimonies. They had been afraid, they said. Dalton had controlled the department through fear for years, but seeing a 21-year-old waitress stand up to him had given them the courage to do the same. 3 of Sarah's former clients called to apologize and offer her job back. Tom from the diner showed up at their apartment with an envelope containing the 2 weeks of wages he owed Emma, plus an additional $500. He couldn't look her in the eye. Keep it, Emma said coldly. Consider it severance pay. But the moment that mattered most came 2 weeks later. Emma sat in the office of Hartford Community College's financial aid department, her hands folded in her lap. The counselor, a kind woman named Mrs. Patterson, smiled across the desk. Miss Martinez, given the circumstances of your case and the media attention, several local businesses have come forward to establish a scholarship fund in your name. Combined with federal aid and work study, your entire tuition is covered. You can start in the spring semester. Emma's eyes filled with tears. All of it? All of it. And there's more. The scholarship covers housing, books, even a modest living stipend. Mrs. Patterson slid a folder across the desk. You're going to be able to focus on your education without worrying about money. You earned this. Emma walked out of that office into the bright afternoon sun where her mother was waiting. Sarah took one look at her daughter's face and knew. You got in? Full scholarship, Mom. Everything paid for. Sarah pulled Emma into her arms, both of them crying, laughing, holding each other like they'd held each other through every hardship that had come before. That evening, Emma returned to Hartford General. Michael was sitting up in bed. Looking stronger, the color returned to his face. He'd been transferred out of ICU 3 days earlier. "I heard the news," he said. "Dalton's going away for a long time. 25 years minimum," Emma said, sitting in the familiar chair beside his bed. "They're calling it the biggest corruption case in Connecticut in decades. And you're going to college." "I am." Michael reached for her hand. "I meant what I said. About coffee. About getting to know you when this is all over." Emma squeezed his hand. "This feels pretty over to me. Then how about Saturday? There's a great place downtown. Best coffee in Hartford. It's a date, Michael." 3 years later, Emma Martinez stood in front of the mirror in a small apartment near Hartford Community College, adjusting her graduation cap. The tassel swung gently as she turned her head, catching the morning light streaming through the window. She had done it. Associate degree in criminal justice, magna cum laude. In the fall, she would start at the University of Connecticut, working toward her bachelor's degree. After that, the police academy. Emma Martinez was going to become a detective. Her mother appeared in the doorway, wearing a new dress Emma had bought her with money from her part-time job at the college library. Sarah's eyes were already wet with tears. "Mi amor, you look beautiful. Don't cry yet, Mom. Save it for the ceremony." Sarah laughed, wiping her eyes. "I'm just so proud of you. Your father would be so proud." A knock at the door interrupted them. Emma opened it to find Michael Reeves standing there in his dress uniform, his chest decorated with medals. He had been promoted to detective 6 months ago, the youngest in the Hartford Police Department's history. "Ready, graduate?" Emma grabbed her gown. "Let's go." The ceremony was held outdoors on the college lawn. Emma sat among 200 other graduates, but she barely heard the speeches. She kept thinking about that cold November night 3 years ago, about the blood on her hands, about the choice she had made to stop instead of walking away. That choice had changed everything. When they called her name, the applause was thunderous. Her professors stood, her classmates cheered. Sarah sobbed openly in the audience. Michael whistled so loud people turned to stare, and he didn't care one bit. Emma walked across that stage and accepted her diploma with her head held high. She was no longer just the maid's daughter. She was no longer the girl accused of robbing a cop. She was Emma Martinez, college graduate, future detective, survivor. That evening, there was a small party at their apartment. Detective Chun came, bringing champagne and stories about the 3 other corrupt officers they had brought down using the precedent from Dalton's case. Mrs. Patterson from financial aid came. Even some of Emma's former classmates from the diner days showed up, the ones who had believed in her innocence from the start. Michael found Emma on the balcony as the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. "Penny for your thoughts?" Emma leaned against the railing. "I was just thinking about that night, about how scared I was, about how close I came to just walking past that alley." "But you didn't," Michael said, wrapping his arm around her shoulders. "You stopped. You helped. You fought back when the whole world was against you. That's who you are, Emma. That's who you've always been." She turned to face him. "And who are we?"